In the dim corridors of ancient philosophy, few tales have captured the imagination of scholars and explorers alike as the story of Atlantis. First chronicled by the Greek philosopher Plato in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, the island of Atlantis is described as a vast and prosperous civilization that existed around 9,000 years before his own time. According to Plato, Atlantis was situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, widely interpreted as the Strait of Gibraltar, and it possessed a remarkable wealth of resources, advanced urban planning, and formidable naval power. Plato's accounts, though brief, have sparked centuries of debate regarding whether Atlantis represents a historical reality, an allegorical invention, or a synthesis of both. The earliest references to Atlantis appear in the context of Plato's philosophical discussions on ideal societies and moral lessons. In Timaeus, Atlantis is introduced as a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris and moral decay. Plato describes the Atlanteans as initially virtuous, living in harmony with natural law, but eventually succumbing to greed and arrogance, prompting divine retribution in the form of earthquakes and floods that submerged their island. While Plato's purpose was philosophical, his meticulous descriptions of the island's concentric canals, rich mineral deposits, and urban architecture suggest he drew upon contemporary geographic knowledge and possibly earlier oral traditions. Geographically, Atlantis has been the subject of extensive speculation. Scholars have noted that Plato situates the island outside the known Mediterranean, implying that it may have been located in the Atlantic Ocean. The Pillars of Hercules reference anchors Atlantis in the west, beyond which few Greeks had traveled. The described size of the island, with mountains, plains, and extensive waterways, has led some historians to consider the possibility that Plato was inspired by actual large islands or coastal regions that had existed in the distant past, later lost to rising sea levels or catastrophic events. Geological studies indicate that sea levels and tectonic activity have indeed altered coastlines over millennia, lending a fragment of plausibility to the notion of a submerged landmass. Parallel accounts in ancient cultures offer intriguing, though often indirect, correlations. Some Near Eastern texts speak of lost lands or civilizations consumed by water, while Minoan records from Crete and surrounding islands reference catastrophic earthquakes and tsunamis in the Mediterranean during the 2nd millennium BCE, the eruption of Thera, modern Santorini, around 1600 BCE. One of the most significant volcanic events in the region, devastated Minoan settlements and generated massive tsunamis. The resulting destruction aligns with Plato's account of sudden catastrophe, leading some researchers to propose that Atlantis could have been inspired by memories of the Minoan civilization or similar ancient maritime cultures that experienced natural disasters. The cartographic aspect of Atlantis remains a critical focal point. Despite centuries of map-making, no ancient chart explicitly depicts Atlantis. Yet the precision of Plato's geographic markers has allowed scholars to hypothesize potential locations. Some historians and archaeologists suggest regions such as the Azores, Canary Islands, or submerged banks in the Atlantic Ocean, while others examine the possibility of a vanished island in the Mediterranean. Plato's account emphasizes a central plain, encircled by concentric rings of land and water, which has led to interpretations of Atlantis as a remarkably sophisticated urban center with advanced hydraulic engineering. While no direct archaeological evidence corroborates the existence of such an island, the description itself has influenced early modern cartographers who occasionally annotated speculative islands on maps beyond the Straits of Gibraltar. Throughout history, Atlantis has oscillated between myth and historical hypothesis. During the Renaissance, European scholars, reinvigorated by translations of Plato, considered the island's existence plausible, integrating it into cosmographic studies. Cartographers like Abraham Ortelius and Athanasius Kircher, though aware of the lack of concrete evidence, included annotations or references to Atlantis in their atlases as a nod to classical scholarship. These interpretations reflect a period in which the lines between myth, oral history, and empirical observation were fluid, and the authority of classical texts was held in high regard. The philosophical undertones of Atlantis also invite analysis. Plato's dialogues suggest that the story functions as a moral allegory, emphasizing the consequences of hubris and the ideal governance of societies. Yet, the detailed physical descriptions, mountains, rivers, ports, and canal systems, imply that he may have intended readers to visualize a real place, blending didactic narrative with geographic observation. Modern scholars often approach this tension by considering Atlantis as a literary construct, rooted in real historical memory, environmental events, or maritime knowledge from earlier civilizations. In this light, Atlantis becomes a symbolic space that conveys lessons while preserving fragments of geographic and cultural information from ancient times. Efforts to reconcile Plato's account with geology and archaeology have produced varied interpretations. Some researchers analyze the topography of the Atlantic and Mediterranean seabeds for submerged plateaus or continental fragments. Studies of the mid-Atlantic ridge, submerged banks, and ancient coastlines suggest that islands may have existed in the distant past, though none match Plato's detailed specifications. Similarly, examination of coastal erosion and tectonic activity in the Mediterranean provides context for historical tsunamis and land loss, reinforcing the possibility that Plato's Atlantis could have a historical kernel beneath the allegorical narrative. Cultural interpretations of Atlantis extend beyond Greek scholarship. During the Islamic Golden Age, philosophers and historians occasionally referenced Plato's tale, discussing the moral and geographic aspects of lost lands. Later, European Enlightenment thinkers revived interest in Atlantis, framing it within the context of natural philosophy, geography, and the exploration of the world's oceans. Atlantis became a canvas for speculation about lost civilizations, the evolution of human societies, and the interaction of natural forces with human ambition. In the modern era, the discovery of advanced mapping techniques, underwater archaeology, and satellite imagery has renewed interest in the Atlantis question. While no definitive archaeological evidence confirms its existence, the integration of historical accounts, geological data, and cultural analysis allows researchers to frame Atlantis as a phenomenon that intersects myth, memory, and empirical inquiry. This approach respects Plato's narrative as a source of philosophical and historical value while acknowledging the limits of material evidence. Despite the absence of confirmed artifacts or ruins, Atlantis continues to influence scientific and popular imagination. Scholars analyze the sociopolitical and technological details within Plato's text to understand the kind of society he depicted. A maritime power with organized governance, monumental architecture, and trade networks. Such descriptions resonate with known ancient civilizations, including the Minoans, Phoenicians, and early Mediterranean city-states, suggesting that Plato's narrative may have incorporated elements of real cultures familiar to him. Furthermore, Atlantis serves as a focal point for examining human responses to natural catastrophes. The depiction of sudden floods, earthquakes, and submersion resonates with historical events that shaped ancient societies, particularly those dependent on maritime trade and coastal settlements. By embedding these disasters in a narrative of moral decline, Plato provides insight into both environmental awareness and ethical instruction, linking geography with social philosophy. The enduring fascination with Atlantis also highlights the role of storytelling in preserving collective memory. Oral traditions, cross-cultural myths, and allegorical tales often encode observations of natural events or societal changes. Atlantis exemplifies this process, combining the philosophical ambitions of Plato with potential references to historical experiences of land loss, urban destruction, and maritime expertise. In this sense, the lost map of Atlantis may not be a literal chart, but a conceptual representation of how ancient peoples understood and recorded their world. Modern interdisciplinary studies combine classical texts, geology, archaeology, and oceanography to explore potential locations and historical analogues. The integration of these fields demonstrates that Atlantis can be approached not merely as myth, but as a historical question informed by multiple lines of evidence. Although no definitive site has been identified, such investigations reveal patterns in ancient knowledge, coastal settlement vulnerability, and the human tendency to embed observation within narrative frameworks. By examining Atlantis through a scientific lens, researchers gain insight into the interplay between imagination, observation, and record-keeping in antiquity. Plato's dialogues function as a bridge between ethical philosophy and empirical curiosity, encouraging modern scholars to consider how ancient civilizations perceived geography, the environment, and human organization. Atlantis thus operates on multiple levels, as a moral allegory, a potential historical memory, and a testament to the enduring human fascination with the unknown. Plato's account, with its specificity and moral framing, continues to inspire debate, research, and creative interpretation. The lost map of Atlantis, whether literal or metaphorical, symbolizes the boundaries of human knowledge and the desire to explore beyond them. It represents the tension between known and unknown, between empirical observation and imaginative reconstruction, and between history and myth. Through centuries, Atlantis has remained a touchstone for explorers, scholars, and storytellers. Its narrative has influenced literature, cartography, philosophical discourse, and popular culture, demonstrating the power of classical texts to shape human inquiry. Even in the absence of physical evidence, the story provides a framework for understanding ancient geography, societal structure, and environmental awareness, illustrating how historical imagination can guide real-world investigation. The story of Atlantis also underscores the methodological challenges faced by historians and archaeologists. Distinguishing between allegorical content, historical fact, and mythological embellishment requires critical analysis, comparative study, and cross-disciplinary collaboration. Each proposed location or historical analog is evaluated not only on physical evidence, but also on plausibility, cultural context, and alignment with Plato's detailed descriptions. In conclusion, the lost map of Atlantis, whether considered a literal place or a philosophical construct, continues to captivate scholars and the public alike. By examining the story within its historical, philosophical, and geographical contexts, researchers can explore the intersection of myth, memory, and empirical knowledge. The tale of Atlantis embodies humanity's enduring curiosity about the unknown, the lessons of moral and environmental stewardship, and the sophisticated geographic imagination of ancient civilizations. While Plato's dialogues provide the most detailed account of Atlantis, subsequent ancient and medieval writers occasionally referenced similar lost lands, though with less specificity. Greek historians such as Herodotus mention distant islands and civilizations at the periphery of the known world, though none match the elaborate description of Atlantis. Later, Roman authors, including Pliny the Elder, refer to islands lost to the sea or swallowed by natural disasters, indicating that the Mediterranean and Atlantic regions were long associated with both real and imagined maritime phenomena. These references suggest that Plato's audience may have been familiar with stories of vanished lands, making his account simultaneously cautionary and conceivable. One critical aspect of Atlantis that has fueled scholarly debate is its alleged advanced urban planning and hydraulic engineering. Plato describes a series of concentric rings of land and water, with canals, bridges, and ports facilitating both transportation and defense. Archaeologists note that such engineering, while impressive, was not entirely beyond the capabilities of Bronze Age civilizations. The Minoans, for instance, constructed complex aqueducts, harbor facilities, and multi-storied palaces with sophisticated drainage systems. This has led some historians to propose that Atlantis represents a composite memory of multiple Mediterranean societies, amalgamated into a single narrative reflecting idealized technological and social achievements. The island's wealth, particularly in precious metals like orichalcum, a metal mentioned by Plato, has been a source of fascination. Ancient authors often referenced orichalcum as a valuable substance, though its precise composition remains unknown. Some modern researchers suggest it may have been an alloy of copper and gold, while others consider it symbolic, representing the prosperity of a society that had mastered maritime trade and resource management. The allure of such treasures has, over centuries, driven explorers and adventurers to seek Atlantis, often without regard for historical or archaeological evidence. Geological studies have contributed further insight into the plausibility of Atlantis-like catastrophes. The Mediterranean basin has experienced significant seismic activity over millennia, including earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanic eruptions. The eruption of Thera, as previously noted, devastated surrounding islands and coastal settlements, and the resulting tsunami could have served as a collective memory embedded in Greek oral traditions. Additionally, the shifting of tectonic plates and the rise and fall of sea levels may have caused smaller land masses to disappear, giving rise to myths of lost continents. In this sense, Atlantis can be interpreted as a literary reflection of real environmental phenomena, preserved in the collective consciousness of Mediterranean civilizations. Cartographic speculation has been central to the search for Atlantis. During the Age of Exploration, European mapmakers occasionally depicted hypothetical islands west of the Iberian Peninsula, influenced by classical texts and early maritime reports. These maps, while not definitive evidence, reveal how Plato's narrative shaped geographical imagination, suggesting that the story functioned not only as philosophy, but also as a proto-geographic reference. Even today, researchers analyze bathymetric data, ancient coastal formations, and submerged plateaus to evaluate potential locations, demonstrating the continued relevance of Plato's work in both historical and scientific inquiry. The question of historical authenticity remains contentious. Skeptics argue that the precise dating in Plato's dialogues, Atlantis existing 9,000 years before his time, renders the story implausible as literal history. Archaeological evidence from the Neolithic and Bronze Age supports the existence of advanced societies, but no civilization of the scale and technological sophistication described in Atlantis has been verified. Nevertheless, proponents of historical hypotheses contend that oral traditions, environmental changes, and selective memory could account for the apparent discrepancies between myth and reality. They suggest that Atlantis represents an amalgamation of ancient memories, natural disasters, and cultural storytelling, preserving echoes of societies long lost to time. Anthropological perspectives further illuminate the narrative. The ethical dimension of Atlantis, where moral decline leads to catastrophe, reflects concerns common in Greek philosophy regarding governance, justice, and human behavior. By embedding these concerns in a geographically and materially rich narrative, Plato effectively combines didactic storytelling with speculative geography. This approach encourages readers to consider the interdependence of societal virtue and environmental stability, a theme resonant across cultures and eras. Medieval and Renaissance interpretations of Atlantis were similarly multifaceted, Islamic. Scholars, translating and preserving Greek texts, occasionally engaged with the story, exploring both ethical and geographic elements. In Renaissance Europe, the rediscovery of classical knowledge spurred renewed interest in Atlantis. Thinkers like Athanasius Kircher and later cartographers integrated Plato's descriptions with empirical observations, speculative mapping, and reports from explorers returning from the Atlantic. These interpretations demonstrate how Atlantis served as a bridge between myth, philosophy, and emerging scientific inquiry. Modern explorations have taken advantage of technological advancements, bathymetric surveys, sonar mapping, and satellite imagery allow scientists to examine submerged landscapes in unprecedented detail. While no site matches Plato's descriptions precisely, these tools have revealed previously unknown submerged features, including ridges, plateaus, and structures that inspire continued speculation. Notably, the Azores archipelago and certain submerged banks in the North Atlantic have been proposed as potential analogues, although evidence remains circumstantial. Such studies underscore the interplay between imagination, classical scholarship, and contemporary science. Literary and popular interpretations of Atlantis have also influenced public perception. From novels to films, the story has been adapted. Repeatedly, often emphasizing adventure, treasure, and mystery rather than historical accuracy. While these adaptations depart from scholarly caution, they reflect the enduring fascination with lost civilizations and the human desire to explore unknown realms. Importantly, they also maintain a link to Plato's original moral and geographic framework, even if loosely interpreted. Cross-cultural comparisons offer further insights. Stories of sunken cities and lost lands appear across civilizations, from the Hindu epic of Dvaraka submerged beneath the sea to legends of lost islands in the Pacific. While independent in origin, these narratives share themes of catastrophe, moral consequences, and human interaction with the natural world. Such parallels suggest that Atlantis may be part of a broader pattern in human storytelling, wherein environmental events and societal experiences are encoded in allegorical or mythic form. Scientific analyses continue to evaluate potential geological and oceanographic explanations. Some hypotheses propose that Atlantis could have been a microcontinent or a series of islands affected by rapid subsidence, tectonic shifts, or volcanic activity. While these remain speculative, they provide frameworks for integrating Plato's narrative with empirical observation. Similarly, the study of ancient climate patterns, sea levels, and seismic activity informs interpretations of the story's plausibility, demonstrating the value of interdisciplinary inquiry in historical research. Despite centuries of debate, Atlantis retains a unique place in the study of history, geography, and philosophy. Its combination of moral allegory, geographic description, and cultural resonance offers multiple layers of analysis. Scholars approach it as a case study in the transmission of knowledge, the evolution of myth, and the human impulse to understand the natural world. Whether Atlantis existed as a real landmass or as a philosophical construct, its story continues to shape our understanding of ancient thought, environmental awareness, and the boundaries of human exploration. Plato's detailed descriptions of cities, canals, and harbors suggest a profound understanding of urban planning and maritime technology. By reconstructing these features through modern scholarship, historians gain insight into ancient engineering, societal organization, and the integration of natural landscapes with human habitation. Even in the absence of physical evidence, the intellectual exercise of visualizing Atlantis offers perspectives on Bronze Age civilizations, trade networks, and the cultural significance of geographic knowledge. The lost map of Atlantis, therefore, functions on multiple levels. It represents a conceptual model of human achievement and failure, a symbolic geography reflecting philosophical concerns, and a stimulus for scientific and archaeological investigation. By engaging with the story critically, modern scholars can appreciate the interplay between myth, historical memory, and empirical observation, understanding how stories shape the collective human imagination across time. Finally, the enduring legacy of Atlantis underscores the importance of critical thinking and interdisciplinary study. By examining Plato's text alongside archaeology, geology, oceanography, and anthropology, researchers can explore the fine line between myth and history. The lost map of Atlantis, whether literal or allegorical, exemplifies humanity's persistent curiosity about the unknown, the relationship between civilization and nature, and the enduring power of storytelling in preserving knowledge and ethical reflection. In the modern era, the story of Atlantis has continued to inspire both rigorous scholarship and popular speculation. Advances in archaeology, marine geology, and oceanography provide new tools to investigate the plausibility of submerged land masses. Bathymetric mapping of the Atlantic Ocean, sonar imaging, and satellite-based topographical surveys allow researchers to identify underwater plateaus, ridges, and potential ancient coastlines. While no site has been definitively linked to Plato's Atlantis, these investigations reveal the dynamic nature of Earth's crust, sea level fluctuations, and coastal transformations that may have contributed to the origin of the myth. One prominent hypothesis suggests that memories of catastrophic events, such as the eruption of Thera, modern Santorini, and the resulting tsunamis, could have been transmitted across generations, eventually crystallizing in the form of Atlantis in Plato's dialogues. The destruction of Minoan Crete, the sudden collapse of settlements, and the environmental upheavals would have been extraordinary in scale, leaving an indelible mark on oral and cultural memory. Plato, drawing upon these traditions, may have woven a cautionary tale that combined historical events with philosophical teaching, creating a narrative that resonates across centuries. Atlantean mythology has also been scrutinized through comparative historical analysis. Scholars note that multiple ancient cultures recount tales of sunken cities, lost islands, and civilizations punished by natural forces. From the submerged city of Dvaraka in Hindu texts to the legends of Lemuria in the Indian and Pacific Oceans, human societies have repeatedly interpreted environmental upheaval as both moral and cosmological lessons. These parallels support the idea that Atlantis, while perhaps not a precise historical reality, embodies a collective understanding of human vulnerability in the face of natural forces. The debate over potential geographic locations for Atlantis remains vigorous. Scholars examine the Azores archipelago, the Canary Islands, and submerged features off the coasts of Spain and Morocco. Some suggest that Atlantis may have been a large island on a now submerged continental shelf, lost to rising sea levels following the last ice age. Others propose that it could have been a composite memory of multiple islands or regions that were destroyed or eroded over millennia. The lack of definitive evidence, however, ensures that Atlantis continues to straddle the boundary between myth and history, challenging researchers to reconcile textual descriptions with geophysical data. Cartographers have historically engaged with Plato's narrative in imaginative ways. During the Renaissance, maps sometimes included speculative islands beyond the Pillars of Hercules, influenced by classical texts and the reports of explorers returning from the Atlantic. These depictions reflect both curiosity and the limitations of contemporary geographic knowledge, illustrating how stories like Atlantis informed exploration, navigation, and the mapping of the known and unknown world. The interaction between myth and empirical observation during this period highlights the enduring impact of Atlantis on scientific and cultural development. Literature, art, and popular media have perpetuated the fascination with Atlantis. From the 16th century humanist scholars to 20th century novels and films, the narrative has been adapted and reimagined repeatedly. While these interpretations often emphasize adventure, treasure, and mystery, they retain a connection to Plato's original philosophical and geographic framework. The story's adaptability underscores its narrative power and the human inclination to engage with unknown or lost worlds, reflecting enduring cultural and psychological themes. Modern interdisciplinary studies approach Atlantis by combining textual analysis, archaeology, geology, and oceanography. Researchers critically examine Plato's writings, comparing them with geological evidence and historical events to identify plausible analogues. This approach emphasizes that Atlantis is not merely a myth to be dismissed, but a complex narrative that encodes ethical, geographic, and environmental observations. By integrating multiple lines of evidence, scholars can explore how ancient civilizations perceived their world and recorded their experiences in a blend of fact, philosophy, and storytelling. Atlantis also serves as a case study in the transmission of knowledge and the preservation of cultural memory. Oral traditions, allegories, and myths often encode information about natural disasters, societal organization, and environmental change. Plato's dialogues, when viewed in this light, can be interpreted as preserving fragments of historical experience in a didactic form. This perspective allows historians to appreciate how human societies transmit understanding across generations, blending observation with moral and philosophical reflection. The enduring allure of Atlantis lies in its capacity to provoke inquiry and imagination. Scholars, explorers, and enthusiasts are drawn to the challenge of deciphering the story, reconstructing the possible reality behind the narrative, and situating it within broader historical, geological, and cultural contexts. The lost map of Atlantis, whether literal or metaphorical, represents the human drive to explore, understand, and contextualize the unknown, linking past and present in a continuum of curiosity and scholarship. From an ethical standpoint, the Atlantis narrative continues to resonate. Plato's emphasis on moral decay, hubris, and divine retribution provides lessons that extend beyond geography and archaeology. The story serves as a reminder that environmental stewardship, social responsibility, and cultural integrity are intertwined with human survival. By contemplating Atlantis, modern audiences can reflect on the relationship between human societies and their environments, considering both historical precedents and contemporary relevance. In conclusion, the lost map of Atlantis, myth or forgotten geography, represents a profound intersection of history, philosophy, and science. Plato's dialogues provide a framework for exploring the moral, geographical, and cultural dimensions of a civilization that may have existed only in memory, imagination, or allegorical form. The story continues to inspire scholarship, exploration, and artistic interpretation, illustrating the power of classical texts to shape understanding across millennia. While definitive archaeological evidence remains elusive, the multidisciplinary study of Atlantis demonstrates how myths can preserve insights into ancient societies, environmental events, and human cognition. Through analysis of textual, geological, and cultural data, scholars approach Atlantis not simply as a legend, but as a window into ancient human experience, offering lessons in ethics, geography, and historical inquiry. Ultimately, the lost map of Atlantis is a testament to human curiosity, creativity, and the enduring desire to bridge the known and unknown. It reminds us that even in the absence of certainty, stories from the distant past can illuminate present understanding, inspire exploration, and connect generations through shared imagination. Atlantis continues to occupy a unique space at the intersection of fact, myth, and philosophical reflection, a symbol of humanity's quest to comprehend the world and our place within it. Through careful study, critical thinking, and interdisciplinary research, the story of Atlantis remains a vital subject for historians, scientists, and the public alike. Its lessons about human achievement, vulnerability, and imagination endure, emphasizing the importance of understanding the past while contemplating the possibilities of the unknown. In this way, the lost map of Atlantis remains not only a historical enigma, but also a guide for exploring the intricate relationship between culture, environment, and knowledge. Even as new technologies and methodologies emerge, from deep-sea exploration to digital modeling, Atlantis retains its capacity to challenge assumptions, spark curiosity, and inspire discovery. The dialogue between myth and evidence continues, inviting successive generations to ponder the mysteries of the ancient world, the power of narrative, and the boundaries of human understanding. The story of Atlantis thus persists as a cultural and intellectual touchstone, Its blend of geography, ethics, and imagination exemplifies the ways in which ancient texts can convey multiple layers of meaning. For those who seek knowledge, Atlantis offers both a cautionary tale and an invitation to investigate the limits of history, geography, and human ambition. By engaging with this narrative responsibly, scholars and enthusiasts alike honor the complexity of the ancient world, while continuing the tradition of inquiry that Plato himself exemplified. In the end, whether Atlantis was a real island, a composite memory, or a philosophical allegory, it continues to inspire wonder, investigation, and reflection. Its lost map symbolizes not merely a location in space, but a map of human curiosity, creativity, and enduring fascination with the unknown. A legacy that bridges the ancient and modern worlds, reminding us that exploration is as much about imagination as it is about discovery.